Welcome to the Grit Factor podcast, where we share stories of real women, their resilience, passion, and their purpose in life. And on today's show, we have the incredible Dr. Mpho Phalatse. She's a medical doctor. She is a mom of three. She's also a minister of faith and a political leader, and she is here today to share her story. Dr. Mpho, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's such a pleasure and an honor for me to have you here today. I just look at you, you are inspiring. You encourage us to want to be better, to grow and develop, and really just, your heart for service and community is something that really, really inspires me. But take us to the beginning. I know you've achieved so much in your life already. Where did everything start for you?
Well, I'm an only child of two educators. I grew up in Mpho Phalatse. It's a township north of Pretoria.
Okay.
And we've now moved to Amandasach, which is a suburban area close to Mpho Phalatse. So I'd say I've lived in different settings. I've got, my experience is really varied, and I can relate to various communities regardless of background, which I really I'm very happy about. I went to a township school in primary, and then I went to a village school, a school where we literally used pit latrines.
Wow.
Yes. But it was the number one school in Bophuthatswana at the time, Tsogo High School. My primary school was in Mpho Primary. And then I went to Loreto Convent School in Pretoria Town, which is a girls-only school.
Okay.
And so that's where I completed my matric. And then I tried to become an engineer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I tried to become a chemical engineer.
Okay.
For all the wrong reasons, because my guidance teacher's husband was a chemical engineer, and they were very successful and very wealthy, and I wanted their lifestyle, so I decided I'm going to do that. But big mistake, 2 years in, I realized, this is not me. I made the wrong choice. And I then told my parents. Of course, it was difficult, to revise my decision. And they then took me to the Department of Labor at the time. This was 1996.
Okay.
And I was able to consult with an educational psychologist free of charge.
Wow.
And they took me through a battery of tests, psychometric testing. And at the end of that exercise, the psychologist said to me, you have 2 areas of interest and 2 areas where you can really excel, but also be happy.
Okay.
So I could have pursued anything in the health sciences, not necessarily medicine. I could have pursued psychology, physiotherapy, diet, nutrition. I could have become a nutritionist, biokineticist. There's so many. Speech therapist.
Okay.
And then she said, but you can also be very happy and very successful in business.
Okay.
So those are the 2 broad groupings I had in front of me. And I then decided, let me start on this side and somehow make my way to this side.
Okay, so there was a plan to transition.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that's how I ended up doing medicine.
Wow.
I remember my plan was to then do an MBA at the end of my medical studies and see where I end up. But lo and behold, what happened was then I did my internship in Tembisa, community service in Hammanskraal.
Wow.
And then I played around a bit. I went into different health sector settings. I wanted to see service delivery models in the private sector, in the public sector, and the mining sector.
Sure.
So I played around a bit, did a bit of work for some mining houses, Anglo Platinum, a bit of work for Lonmin, Exara Coal, did a bit of GP practice in Potchefstroom.
Wow.
And then I ended up with contracts with SASSA, the Social Security Agency, doing disability assessments.
Okay.
I held contracts in both the Northwest Province and Gauteng Province at the time. A lot of my work was concentrated in the Northwest because Gauteng was quite saturated with service providers. There were too many of us, not enough work for all of us. So I ended up focusing in the Northwest. And that's where my career trajectory kind of changed because I was exposed to abject poverty, particularly in a place called Ganyesa, very close to the Northern Cape, far northwest. And the level of poverty was quite disturbing for me. I was making my money because people were applying for disability grants. Most of them didn't qualify. They were applying because of poverty.
Wow.
And whether they qualified or not, I was making my money because I was invoicing SASSA based on the number of people I'd seen. But it bothered me that I was not helping them.
Sure.
And that's what made me start praying about, what do I do to actually help these people? Because it's not enough that I'm enriching myself, but their lives aren't changing. And in my conversations with God and my research, I ended up applying to specialize in public health medicine, which is public administration with a focus on health care. I wanted to understand how sectors of government and sectors of society, with the business of society, could work together to take care of people on the ground. I was seeing a lot of silos, a lot of fragmentation, and I was seeing that as one of the drivers for poverty, unemployment. And so public health medicine was the way to go. I applied to Medunsa, where I did my undergrad. I applied to the University of Pretoria and to Wits University because I wanted to be in Gauteng for my studies. And Wits was the first one to respond, and I got a post there. That's how I actually moved to Johannesburg in 2011.
Oh, wow.
And the plan was to do the 4 years and get out. And so I came and I did this great experiential learning program at Wits and made in public health medicine. I rotated in various service delivery sites. My first 6 months was at Barra.
Okay.
Hospital. It was then the busiest hospital in the Southern Hemisphere. And I believe it still is.
Yeah.
And I remember saying at the end of that 6 months, the one thing I learned at Barra was crisis management.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
It just felt like we went from crisis to crisis to crisis. But it was a lovely experience. So I worked with the CEOs, the clinical execs, on really hospital management. And from there, I went into the occupational health and safety space at the National Institute for Occupational Health, another 6 months. Lovely. And then I went to the National Institute for Communicable Diseases, doing outbreak response and disease surveillance. I learned how to deal with outbreaks. So very interesting work that I did over the 4 years, doing 6 month stints in various settings. At the end of the 4 years, I then thought, well, my 4 years is done. I can go back home. I can go back to Pretoria. And so I packed up and I went back home. I was home for 3 months and nothing opened up for me.
Oh, wow.
No opportunities. I mean, I was praying, I was fasting, I was knocking on doors, and just nothing was opening up until I really sought the Lord. I actually went to my church then. I saw the head of the prophetic school for counseling.
Okay.
And we prayed together, and he actually said to me, your assignment is in Johannesburg. That's why Pretoria is rejecting you. And true to his word, everything started happening when I came back. Doors started opening. I had various opportunities. I mean, I was project lead on a World Bank study on TV and mining.
Wow.
We were doing data migration. I was also project lead on a data migration project, doing the change management, from paper files to electronic health records in hospital settings. I was doing medical legal work as well, seeing cases of sexual assault, domestic violence in Springs at Far East Rand Hospital. And just before I moved into politics, I'd actually been appointed to be medical advisor for the Compensation Commission. And I remember I had just gotten contracts to do some work for one of the petroleum companies in their depots. So they'd given me 4 depots to do some services, cleaning services, gardening, and truck wash services. So I was very busy.
Wow. Yeah, sounds like you had a lot on your plate.
As soon as I came back. And but something interesting happened. Alex happened. Alexandra Community Health Center. I was doing Casualty there 5 days a month. And one day, it was a Sunday morning, I'd been on call, a 24-hour call, and 5 young men were wheeled in, all of them with multiple gunshot wounds, and 2 died in our hands in our casualty. We managed to refer 3 to Charlotte Maxeke. I'm told 2 died there.
Wow.
So only 1 of the 5 lived. But it was, for me, a very traumatic experience. And it was a culmination of a week where I was seeing patient after patient with just the most horrific trauma experiences for absolutely no reason. And what I realized with that casualty is that everything ends up in casualty.
Okay.
And it would be the most horrific stories. Somebody gets involved in a car accident with one of the taxis and they ask, let's go to the police station so we can open a case and we can get a statement. Obviously they want to claim from insurance, fix their car and so on. And they get stabbed.
Wow.
Yeah, it got to a point where I would advise patients, if you're in an accident, just
come
drive.
straight. Yeah,
just
don't,
drive. Just leave. Just leave everything else. Just go. You can always go to the police station on your own still. But it was those kind of things. I remember having a young boy, and he had been assaulted at school by another schoolmate. And I was asking this boy, but what happened? What led to the assault? And the boy said, nothing. And I kept asking because I thought he's not telling me. And the father said, he's telling you the truth. There does not have to be a reason for violence to occur. And I realized it's a very violent community. But as you drive through Alexandra, you begin to understand why. When you look at just how the township is set up.
Okay.
If you look at the degree of overcrowding, you look at the living conditions.
Sure.
You know, I felt firstly that the people of Alex need a voice.
Yeah.
I felt they had been desensitized to their own living conditions because they'd been used to it.
Yes.
I felt it was going to take an outsider to kind of, start the conversations and lobby on their behalf. And that was really what I wanted to do. But one of the people I approached was a friend who was a member of parliament at the time.
Okay.
We had specialized together at Wits, Dr. Heinrich Balming. And he's the one who said to me, have you ever considered becoming a councillor?
Wow.
Yeah. And
what was your thought? What went through your mind when he said that to you?
It had never occurred to me. So I'd had dreams and even prophetic words about politics, but I'd always seen myself in national politics. I'd never seen myself at a local government level, so it hadn't occurred to me at all. And much later in life, you know, I thought, you know, when I've worked, I've made my money, I've made an impact in communities, I can then go and serve in government. And so when he said this, I said, but I've got plans. I had these petroleum company contracts pending that I was meant to start servicing. And I had all these jobs. There was just so much happening. And he said to me, no, you don't have to be full-time. You can be a PR counsellor.
Okay.
Don't apply to be a ward counsellor. You can still continue with your plans. Because he genuinely thought I could handle everything and still become a PR counsellor. But what he did not know is that I would then be appointed an MMC, which is a full-time position. And so 2016 August, I became an MMC for Health and Social Development in the city, responsible for running, at the time we had 80 clinics. Environmental health and all social services in the city. And I remember walking across to the press briefing and our regional chair for the Democratic Alliance at the time saying to me, oh, by the way, this is a full-time job. Just like that.
Wow. Okay.
It's not after the announcement. And we're walking across to the presser and he's saying, by the way, this is full-time, so you can't do anything else.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then what did you?
Right there and then I knew my life had changed.
Yeah.
I had cried a week for Alexandra. I had cried until I said to God, it's no longer me crying. What do you want from me?
Sure.
And then everything transpired. And so I knew I couldn't say no. And I knew powerful, I had to make a way to make it work. Yeah.
I think that is really powerful in the sense that, you know, even just, you know, dealing with, I think it was the minister or the pastor that told you that your calling is in Johannesburg and how you had to then just follow the leading of what God was saying you needed to do and how then everything sort of started to make sense and led you to this point where you yourself, you couldn't say no, you couldn't reject because you had seen the cry of the people, the poverty, the absolute desolation of the place and all of that, and you really just answered the call, and that was your calling. Yeah. And so that's incredible. I really love that because I think sometimes we plan our lives to the T. We think everything's going to work out a certain way, and the way we design it, but then. I always believe that God has a very different plan, and things, when they, turn out differently, it's because it was meant to be that way. And that's part of your calling and your purpose.
Absolutely. I mean, I've made mistakes. So at that point, I knew to go to God for direction because I had wasted time. I told you I tried to be an engineer and then I went to did medicine. I wasted 2 years trying to be a missionary.
Sure.
Where I literally dropped out of med school. I wanted to go into Africa and preach the gospel.
Wow.
And how I went back to med school was through the prophetic as well.
Okay.
When a certain prophetess, Anita Giovanoni, I'd spent a week at her school. And at the end, when she was releasing us, she said to me, I see you having a ministry in the marketplace to the sick and to the poor.
Wow.
And this must have been around 2000, 2001. And 15 years later, I became MMC, Health and Social Development, Ministry to the Sick and to the Poor in the marketplace.
I mean, wow, that couldn't be more accurate.
Right,
yeah.
And I had wasted 2 years. And that for me was a lesson in seeking guidance, in not making major decisions before you've prayed, you've fasted, and you've heard from the Lord. And that became a formula that I use for my life till today.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely awesome. And so I think I wanted to touch a little bit just on, just the community space. And I think if I think of both, like you speaking about sick and the poor, and for me, I look at medicine and politics, and I think some people will say they're so like different. They like worlds apart, like different industries altogether. That's what we think it is. Both are service-orientated industries, in my opinion, and it's a depiction of your heart, and your heart for people, your heart for the nation, and your heart to help and really just uplift the communities that you find yourself in. And so, I think it's really just an incredible story of how God will use everything to bring you to a point of the work that you're actually supposed to do.
Not true. Everything needs politics, and everything depends on politics. Politics is the space where decisions are made that impact the whole of society, regardless what profession you're in. As a doctor in the public sector in South Africa, I used to complain a lot. I had to do much with little because of the lack of resources, maladministration, corruption in the system, and so on. And I realized the only way to turn that around, this is before I even get into, how I want to serve the community of Alexandra as an example, just within the clinic itself. The fact that I didn't have tools of trade to do what I needed to do. I then asked myself, where are decisions made? Where are resources managed that determine my ability to do what I need to do? And that's what we need to realize, is that everything is linked to politics. And it's my desire for more people to enter politics, because then we can resolve a lot of challenges. I obviously went into the healthcare space in government, and I was able to resolve a lot of issues that I know my colleagues are dealing with in the healthcare space. But can you imagine if an engineer then entered the utilities space, as MMC for City Power, Joburg Water, as an example, pick it up, and so on and so forth. I think we'd have a much better place to live.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. And I think it's so important because, as you mentioned, it's where decisions are made, where you can change, you can literally help change, the trajectory of so many people's lives. So I think it's really, really powerful tool for transformation. And if we have the right people in position, then, people that really have a heart to serve, and that want to see communities lifted up and progress and transformation, then I know that it's something that's really powerful tool for change. And so I wanted to just get some thoughts from you. Like, as mayor, you were the first female mayor of Johannesburg. I mean, that's an incredible feat. Maybe just share, what was your experience like there? What were some of the challenges that you had to deal with?
So I had 13 months in office.
Okay.
Maybe let me start in the beginning. So I was elected in November 2021.
Okay.
And I was elected with 26% of the vote.
Okay.
You actually needed 50% plus one.
Oh, wow.
To become mayor. So I came in with my 26%, and at the 11th hour, certain political groupings decided to donate their votes. And that's how I got over the line.
Okay.
But because there were no predetermined coalitions, or there were no coalition agreements, I knew that I was fragile with my 26%. Okay. And I knew that I would not be able to do much, because there are certain processes within government that require 50% plus one still. You need to pass budgets, you need to pass plans, the integrated development plans, as an example. And so you would need the support of those parties. And so we immediately got into coalition talks after I was elected.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it took a while for me to appoint MMCs. I think it was only about 3 weeks later, after my election, that I announced MMCs. In the 3 weeks, I would have been the only politician running the city.
Wow.
So that was tough.
Yeah.
There were lots of expectations from everywhere, lots of noise. Go to the CBD, there's this happening. Everybody wanted a piece of me. And it was really difficult. And at the same time, I was trying to negotiate with government. So just trying to keep everyone at bay, appease everyone, get support in that time. You needed the skill of almost blocking out the noise and being focused and deciding what is the most important thing at that time and focusing on that. I did coaching during COVID.
Okay.
So I enrolled for corporate coaching, and that experience really helped me a lot in managing this very complex time.
Yeah.
And so in December, I then announced MMCs. It was a complex coalition of about 10 parties at some point. And it was very interesting in that respect. The horse trading that never stopped, even after people were given positions, they continued to shop around, the backstabbing, the opposition lobbying for support from some of our partners, and just looking at mistrust in an environment where you're supposed to be a team, but you don't really know who's with you and who's working against you. So that was quite a lot. 13 months is not enough time to turn around a broken city.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even in the manifesto launch, I said, we're inheriting a broken city, but together we can rebuild it.
Yes.
But Johannesburg would need at least 2 terms. And so 13 months is nothing compared to what you require. But I must say I'm grateful for the experience, and I had a great team, and we had great plans. And, a lot of great things were done. We held the first ever energy indaba in the city, where for the first time we invited independent power producers to look at how we stabilize energy security. The business sector had said to us, please, just give us a functional city. Don't worry about growing the economy. We will take care of that. Don't worry about creating jobs. We will take care of that.
Wow.
Just make sure that the city is functional. The lights are on. Taps are not dry.
Yes.
There's no potholes on our roads. The city is safe. And make sure we can function, and we will do that. And that was really our focus. It was a back to basics strategy of how to get the city functional again. And we did a lot of amazing things. I had a great team. I'm so grateful for the experience. I only wish we had more time.
More time, absolutely. Yeah. And looking at where our country is positioned now, like obviously with the GNU, and obviously 30 years into democracy, where do you see us? Like, how do you feel about the position that we find ourselves in, and what do you believe the future needs to look like?
The GNU certainly is shaping the country's trajectory. It does look like this could be the politics of the future.
Yeah.
What's happening there is what you have is you have a macro coalition of sorts, right? You've got 2 strong parties that are governing together in the ANC and the DA, but you also have other parties because the ANC decided we're not going to close out the other smaller parties. And so it's a grand coalition of sorts, even though they're calling it a government of national unity. So at a semantic level, you might have disagreements as to what it actually is. But here you have the DA and the ANC, you've been on opposite sides of the fence, finally working together. If you have that type of model of filtering through to the local level, we would have more stable governments. There are, however, polarizing issues within that grand coalition, which I feel need to be addressed with much wisdom and urgency, because if they're not addressed, they do put at risk this milestone of the 2 finding each other. Issues around international relations, issues around economic redress, issues around land reform. I do feel there's urgency in the 2 finding each other, finding a win-win or a compromise if they can't find a win-win. Because once they've done that, that will speak volumes in stabilizing the country. We've got elections next year. There is, of course, a lot of anxiety on the ground. You saw what happened with the budget, the national budget recently. We don't want a repeat of that. And I do feel like we know enough to be able to identify what those areas are that are polarizing and that pose a risk to stability. And I feel the sooner the powers that be come together and find each other, the more stable this nation will be.
Awesome. Do you think leaders are born, or do you believe that someone can grow and become a leader?
Both.
Okay.
There are people who are not necessarily born leaders, but who can learn to lead. So it's also a skill that you can learn. And with the right focus and dedication, you certainly can become a leader.
Awesome. I love that. I was thinking about something I read once. It was just sort of alluding to the fact that anyone can lead if they have heart and a passion for service. And so I thought that was really powerful, because that means you don't need a title, you don't need to be positioned in a specific place. And I'm thinking specifically of our communities and those that are, disenfranchised and feel like they're overlooked. And, they can, leaders can rise up from that space from within the communities. And I know there are lots of powerful leaders, but I'm just saying, like, it could be the mom that's, taking a kid to school. She can lead in her own right and in her own world. And I just believe that that's so powerful, because that's what brings communities together. We're not waiting for someone else to show up and fix our problems. You know what I mean? Like, we're taking responsibility for, our world and what we have and what we can do to make a difference. So I think that's really a powerful sentiment.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. There are different types of leaders. There's leaders who lead from behind, lead from the background. I think what I did when I decided that it was not okay how Alex people are living.
Sure.
I was just a doctor at a clinic, but I showed leadership. I was not in a position, but I decided, no, this has to stop.
Exactly.
And someone has to do something. And I started poking and taunting and asking the right questions. That was leadership.
Yes.
So I agree with you that, and even in my time as a politician, I met a lot of leaders in communities who are not necessarily recognized as leaders, but who play a leadership role and who would often interface with government and help us understand their problems better and help us really diagnose and come up with how we can resolve their issues. So there are all types of leaders.
Awesome. Okay, I wish we had lots of more time to discuss all of the amazing things that you've done, but I want to just, jump into something a little bit more lighthearted.
All right.
So I've got a few rapid fire questions for you. You don't have to think about it, just like answer. Whatever comes to the top of your head, you'll answer. Okay, are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. So the first one is comfort food after a long day, yes or no?
Oh, yes.
Yes. Power outfit, bold blazer or red lipstick?
Red lipstick.
Definitely. Song that instantly lifts your spirit?
Ooh, it's seasonal.
Okay.
Let me think about now. Praise the Lord by Elevation Worship.
Okay, great. A book every young woman should read?
Okay, I'm going to be biased. I read Rick Joyner's The Final Quest. It changed my life.
Okay.
But it is a Christian book.
Okay.
But it really changed my life in terms of understanding purpose.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And then favorite Bible verse or quote you live by?
My Bible verse is Ephesians 2 verse 10. Okay. And it says, we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which were prepared in advance that we should walk in.
Love that. Love. Okay, what surprises people most when they meet you?
That I'm actually very down to earth and I'm a gassy girl.
I love that. Okay, what still gives you hope about South Africa?
I love how the different races are standing up to misinformation across the globe. I love how it's bringing us together instead of dividing us. South Africans are special. We've got a special nation. We need to protect it. And I love how we're beginning to see that and we're beginning to value each other and stand up to the enemy.
Love that. Okay, well, that's all that we have for today. But I think before we close and before we leave, I think, just if I think of women watching and perhaps someone going through a tough season, something that they are dealing with that's challenging, if you can maybe just, share some words of encouragement or something practical that they can implement in their lives that will help them through a tough time.
Wow. Seasons are important. We are made in different types of seasons. Every season has its own weight of importance. I was actually preaching on Sunday, and part of the lesson was about gold and how it gets refined in the fire. And how you don't put it in the fire, it will have impurities.
Wow.
And it will never attain to its best and its maximum potential in terms of its value. So we need to embrace those tough seasons. But in embracing them, we need to understand the why. And even if we don't understand the why, we need to trust that they are part of our growth and developmental process, particularly building our character and our resilience, because the world has those tough seasons. And you've got to know how to deal with them. But in embracing it, you've got to also have coping mechanisms. My own coping mechanisms are my spirituality. I find that when my spirit man is strong, I can handle a lot. And so in those tough seasons, find what it is that works for you. A good social support system, going and learning about what you're going through, reading about it, looking at other people's testimonies who have come out of it and how they did it. That can also be encouraging. I use music a lot. I worship a lot. Or sometimes I just play it in the background. Cry if you have to, but cry when it's appropriate to do so. It's not always appropriate to cry. And take care of yourself. Don't give up. Don't quit. Embrace the lesson. You'll come out better.
I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for just sharing your wisdom, your story, your experiences with us. Thank you for your courage and your heart for our nation. You continue to inspire us, and we'll continue to watch from the sidelines as you do incredible things. But thank you so much, and hopefully we'll do it again sometime.
Thank you, Queen. And I know you're still in the year of your reign.
Yes.
So all the best to you as well.
Thank
We're
you.
really proud of all the work you're doing. I've been honored to watch your journey, to be a part of it from the Mrs. South Africa side. And I'm really, really impressed with what you're doing. And all the best with your podcast. And may you see many, many more exploits.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of Grit Factor. And if you would like to connect with Dr. Mpho, you can find her on all social media platforms. And if you would like to book her for your next speaking engagement, you can find her at the Speakers Firm. Well, thank you once again. And we will see you next week for another episode of Grit Factor.